Thank everyone for joining us today for our coffee talk. Today's talk is CPR for CRM, and we have a guest with us today. We're happy and honored to have Geoff Abels with us. He is one of the managing partner, rather, of C5 Insight and a Microsoft MVP. He is also a Cincom CPQ Sync sales and implementation partner as well. C5's expertise is in dynamic CRM delivery and improvement. In addition, they address sales and management processes for optimal sales performance and ultimate user experience. That being said, I'm going to hand the reins over to Geoff, and Geoff, you can take the presentation and get started.
All right. Thanks so much, Tammy. Good to see you again. As always, thanks you for everyone who's joining us today. Let's see, I'm trying to share my slides. I don't see them. There we go.
Got
Tammy,
it.
do you see them?
I see them, yes.
So as Tammy and I got together and talked about, what are some topics we hear about regularly from the community out there? This one certainly came to the fore. I call it CPR for CRM, but basically this idea that CRM projects are not always as easy to get right as maybe the marketing from the CRM vendors would have you believe. And so we just wanted to talk about that some today. So Tammy and I are going to kind of just make this a conversation. But the first thing before we get into that I just wanted to point out to everyone is if you are struggling with CRM in any way, it might be the technology is not working the way you thought it should, your users aren't adopting it, you're not able to track and understand the value generated for your business as well, or any combination of those things, you are far from alone. Here's statistics pulled over a number of years, going all the way back to 2001 to much more recently. Failure rates for CRM projects are high, and failure is a little different from just serious struggles too. So if you're just dealing with serious struggles, you may be doing actually better than many of your peers are. But just know you're not alone. This is something that a lot of companies have had to get through. And in fact, that statistic at the bottom, the 47%, was a really enlightening one to me, because the statistics at the top really were interviews and surveys talking about how is your current project going. The statistic at the bottom says, how many times did you have to do it before you really started getting it right? And nearly 50% had to try 2 or more times before they got it right. So CRM problems, definitely something that happens often. And that's not even all alone. Any digital workplace project brings a lot of challenges with it. It's we're remodeling our home right now, Tammy, and I can tell you right now, project overruns in terms of time and cost and frustrations with what we thought was going to happen versus what did happen, not uncommon there either. So it's just a fact of life. Managing these big, complicated projects can have a lot of unpredicted outcomes. So as Tammy and I talked about it, one of the things I realized, I've talked on this subject all over the world for probably over 10 years now, maybe more. And as I started thinking about how we would tackle it today, one of the things that came back to me was this idea of balance. We can list some of the problems and the solutions, but more and more what I find is the problem lies in either of the extremes, which may not feel like an extreme when you're in the weeds implementing CRM. So I thought we'd talk about the 6 balancing acts you have to struggle with to get CRM done right. And I can tell you, for these 6 things, I've done so much work around all these. Almost all 6 of them I've got deeper dive recorded webinars, deeper dive e-workbooks, blog articles, that kind of stuff. So I put my contact information there, because if you're watching this live or recorded, if one of these resonates with you and you think, hey, do you have anything else on that so I can dive deeper, please just ping me. I'll be glad to get you some links to help you in your journey with that if that's helpful to you. So let's dive in, Tammy, and talk a little bit about this. The first one is I listed as technology. I don't think this is always the biggest one. In fact, I think sometimes getting the technology right is the easy part compared to getting the people part right, which we'll talk a lot about. But what I see with the balancing act with technology is this. Some organizations are on the far left and they're focused strictly on out of the box, right? I just want to use the CRM, and Dynamics is what we focus mostly on, but we've done projects with Salesforce. We've even counseled people who've done their own homegrown CRM applications. And in all cases, we see a lot of organizations say, I should just be able to get this thing, tweak it a little bit and turn it on and get all the value I need straight out of the box. No third-party add-ons, not a lot of time spent customizing or configuring it, just kind of working out of the box. The other side of that balancing act I see people fall to is let's get all best of breed point solutions to do everything that we want to do. So in other words, all right, well, CRM is okay for our sales process, but we're going to get a best of breed marketing application. We're going to get a best of breed quoting application. We're going to get a best of breed fill in the blank application. And all of a sudden you wind up with all these things that aren't connected and actually require your users to do more work to get their jobs done than if you just had a single integrated solution. And integrated can be integrated or embedded. Tammy, have you guys seen any of this?
We do. CPQ Sync in particular is one of those best of breed point solutions, but it is fully embedded within your Dynamics CRM. It is, in fact, just becomes an extension of your CRM. Because we embedded it in the way we wrote it, it actually produces a seamless and consistent user experience. So your sales teams are going through the same procedure they're doing with CRM in order to get CPQ. It also uses functionality that exists within CRM, functionality like single sign-on, the workflow rules, as well as the unified interface, so that it's responsive to whatever device the end user is using. They're not having to do anything any different.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. I mean, the reality is CRM solutions are not really designed to solve all of your customer engagement needs. So going totally out of the box almost never fits unless maybe you're a very small, very simple business and you're just trying to do some very fundamental block and tackle things. But at the same time, if you do things in too many different places, you have problems. You use CPQ Sync as an analogy. I'd use a marketing application as another example of this. For example, HubSpot. I think most people would tell you if you're going to get the best of breed marketing solution, you would probably go get HubSpot. But I can't tell you how many organizations that are using Dynamics plus HubSpot. We've actually replaced HubSpot with something like Click Dimensions or Dynamics 365 for marketing. And while the owners of those applications may argue with me, I would say HubSpot is a better best of breed application than either of those. But I would also say the organizations that have replaced HubSpot with those other applications who are using Dynamics have actually created more productive users, better interaction between marketing and sales and handoffs between them, because those are fully embedded, fully integrated solutions. So really important to get your head around that. It's easy to kind of say, our marketing department really wants this because they fell in love with it a long time ago, and that's understandable. But at the same time, you need to do something that enables all the people who are facing your customer to work together. And Tammy, you gave a lot of great examples. That's data sharing. That's the ability to have workflows that connect them together. And that's even simple things like single sign-on, just one place to get everything done.
And it enhances your user adoption as well. The salespeople, we're creatures of habit. We do the one thing that we do and we get comfortable with it. So if I don't have to learn two or three new things to make the process flow, then I'm going to be a lot happier.
Yep, absolutely. It's about keeping it simple for your end users. And let's face it, customer facing people, they don't love what they do because they love technology. They love what they do because they love being a part of the people journey. And
Absolutely.
so we all got to use technology, but we got to make it as easy on them as possible.
Absolutely.
So another area of balance that we've run into a lot is this idea of what is the role of the C level in this project? And the couple of extremes I see are no one says they should have no role at all, I don't think. But I think the old school, the more traditional thinking is we have to get buy-in from the C level, right? Oh, executive leadership has to say, we buy into that this project is important. I think that's a part of the picture. On the other extreme, I see some organizations, particularly smaller ones, but not tiny small. I've even worked with 400, 500, 600 people organizations where someone in the C level is actually owning the CRM project. And as a guy who does business development, I used to think, wow, this is great. You want C-level engagement, which is true. But when you get C-level project ownership, that means that person probably is way too deep into the weeds that they've been out of touch with for a long time, trying to make this project work instead of letting the people who really have now the deeper institutional knowledge involved in it. So what I see as engagement is really the right balance for these things. When the C-level starts to say, hey, I need to use this solution to help me run the business better, right? So yes, I'm going to be engaged. Maybe once or twice a year, I'll have a voice in some of the vision, but I'm not going to own every detail of the project. But I'm also going to start to use this and require I get metrics out of this that I can use to make better decisions and to influence the behavior of the people on my team. One simple case in point I can tell you, another thing that used to be sort of a bad news for me a long time ago is, oh, the CFO is engaged in the CRM project. That sounds horrible, right? Maybe they're just going to focus on nickels and dimes. What I find is when a good CFO is engaged in a CRM project, they're actually asking questions that creates accountability around all the users of the CRM project. 99 times out of 100, those projects go way better than projects where the CFO is not engaged. So that goes for all parts of the C-level, but certainly something that I see regularly. Tammy, what's your experience with that?
Now, it's actually a very common pitfall that we see in CPQ implementations. What we're really talking about is the C-level getting involved for change management. You know, the senior leaders have to be involved at the highest levels, and that forces realistic expectations to be set at the outset for live dates, for day one functionality, and to properly prepare the end users. And it involves the training, it involves the support. When you talk about CFOs getting involved, generally what I see is when a CFO is involved in the project, it tells me there's a real problem there that's getting dumped in the lap of the CFO because the CFO is the one having to fix everything when it comes through, because that's where the finances rest, and that's normally what it boils down to. So when finance is involved, there is a specific problem that absolutely has to be solved.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a ton of sense. When it's this optional thing without really a problem defined, an optional thing is rarely accepted as the normative in the business. I tell you, it's almost a difference between C-level saying, this is a nice to have that my team should use, and this is a critical tool for running my business. The data in this is just as important as the data coming out of my accounting or ERP system. When that happens, you get successful. But the problem is a lot of C-level executives say, I'm not going to treat it like that until the quality is there. And if that's your approach, the quality is never going to be there. It's horse and cart, right? You've got to start getting the alignment there and expectation there by requiring information out of it before you expect the data to be perfect.
Correct.
Another people thing, and again, most of this is about people, but the role of IT. I see, you know, some of these software as a service solutions are now so independent that folks circumnavigate their IT group completely and say, we can exclude them. We can do this project without them involved in it at all. On the other hand, I see a lot of leaders in sales, marketing, customer care, as well as higher levels, C-level of an organization saying, that's technology, that's an IT project. What I can tell you these days is every project is an IT project. IT is sort of a support, a service group that's really critical for every project. But would you have your IT group running your sales department? Of course not, right? I mean, in fact, who is the least qualified to be a people first type of human touch organization? And I don't mean any disservice to an IT department because I've got a lot of IT running in my veins as well, but it's not IT. IT is about systems and procedures and very rigorous process and security. They're not necessarily about a people first approach to getting things done. So the appropriate approach is some kind of balance between them. The business needs to own it. The IT group needs to support it. They need to be very ever present within it. But business needs to be deciding what are the requirements, how is this going to work for me, not delegate that task to the IT team.
No, that's absolutely what we see. You know, our feeling is any project that involves software, devices, or processes needs IT involvement. CPQ projects in particular have to be supported from the start, and they need to be supported by top management through IT all the way down to the end users. And it doesn't stop with the beginning of the implementation. It is an ongoing effort. Certainly the heavy lift is at the beginning, but it needs to carry through on a continuous basis.
Yeah, great. That's a great word. I didn't even put that in here, but you made a great point. It's not a project, it's a living thing. So you don't kind of say, oh, we've done CPQ now, we're done, we move on. There's always new products emerging. There's always better ways to do pricing and configuration for your customers. Your competitors are changing the landscape all the time. Folks like you guys are rolling out new capabilities that should be leveraged. And if it's more like a bookcase that we put it together and we're done and we're moving on to something else, ultimately you're going to get out of date.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, Cincom continuously, quarterly enhances CPQ sync. Sometimes it's user function, sometimes it's back-end function, but it just doesn't stop once you're installed. It's a continuing, ongoing thing, and that's where IT needs to keep their eye on the ball. Again, the heavy lift at the beginning, but going forward, you can't look somewhere else and say, okay, this one's done, now let me go on to the next project. It is a continuing thing.
Yep, absolutely. It's a living organism. In your organization, you do an annual plan for your business every year. That annual planning and thinking needs to think about all of these systems that change so fast, and nothing changes faster than the things that touch your customers.
That's correct.
This one was kind of a surprise to me in a way. We kind of ran into this about a year ago as we were looking at our own client base and saying, who's getting the most traction? How are things working the best? And as we looked at those leadership roles, so not necessarily C-level leaders, but those department heads who are running customer-facing groups, what we found was this: there's typically a lot of them are hands off, sort of like C-level executives. Hey, I'm the sales manager. I don't need to use this. My people use this. I think a lot of organizations have grown past that now, but some are still there. All the way to the other extreme of some are so hands-on and rolling up their sleeves, they're literally administering the solution for people. It's kind of like the over-engaged project manager C-level executives. That's too much, right? You're not freed up enough to do what your actual job is. But what's the right balance here? Not just users. What we have found is not just users and not just project owners. I think those are fairly self-evident. But when those folks are power users, I actually find those organizations do so much better than the others who are just kind of like, well, I'll open it up to run my sales meetings. When we have leaders in these positions who are so engaged that they say, I can train my users in this. I'm deep enough into it that I don't just worry about the reports I need out of this and telling some administrator to do this for me. I think about getting in here and looking in detail around, how did you put this deal together? How long has this deal been in the pipeline? Let me create my own viewer report so I can look at things a little more closely. How are you doing your job with this? Let me train you. Let me feel your pain, user, in using this system so that I can advocate for you if I think this system is really not working the way it needs to work for you as a user. And users often don't know how to articulate that to the people who are administering it as well as their managers do. So if you're a departmental manager for a department like this and you're not a power user yet, I'd give you that challenge. I'd say, work hard on how do you become as knowledgeable or much more knowledgeable about your solution than you expect your own users to be.
This is a pitfall that we see frequently. Another one. It revolves around preparation and doing the homework before you start the project. You got to understand what you're doing well in any department. You got to understand what needs improvement. Maybe it's not bad, it just needs to be tweaked a little bit. And you got to understand what simply isn't working. And then when you understand how that's starting to affect your business, you're going to understand how it's starting to affect your dollars. That's going to change the perspective on it. And that's going to take us down the road that we need to be on to get the project going, because now you have clearly defined goals within the project.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Project owner is certainly, I think, what you were focusing on. Power user is what I was focusing on. And both of those roles are really important. You can't delegate the project ownership to somebody in IT, or somebody who doesn't have the full breadth of knowledge and influence that you do as the leader of that team.
That's correct. That is correct. Geoff, we got just a few minutes left. I know we got a couple more slides. Let's keep rolling.
All right, let's race through them a little more quickly and try to wrap it all up. Again, happy to dive deeper into this if anyone wants to follow up. So the fifth of the six balancing acts is this idea of, so what does your frontline user need to be thinking about? On the one extreme that we run into a lot of times is, oh, it's an optional system, or it's there for reference, go look stuff up in it. I can tell you when a lot of organizations approach us for new projects, they say, look, I just want it to be so good that my people will just use it. And that's a great goal and desire, but I can tell you that works 0% of the time. It should be so good that if your users really understood it, they would use it, but don't expect the camel to drink the water if you bring it to it. You've actually got to put other things in place. On the other hand, we see some organizations try to tightly define the process so much that there's no room for the human element in it anymore. This is the exact way that we do things. And there's certainly a continuum there. Some companies can get away with a little more of that, some can't. But you need to bring all those together so that your users they're empowered, but they're also accountable for using it. The way we say it is, it should have a rigid core. Some things you absolutely have to do consistently, but it should have flexible edges, because the flexibility is A, where you bring the human touch in, but B, where people start to learn lessons that if you've got a rigid core, you can then say, hey, Tammy did it this way. And now that we've got this rigid process that's a small core, we can add Tammy's way of doing it to this. So that knowledge and that process is shared across our footprint instead of just Tammy doing it Tammy's way. So there's a lot of power in that, but it's a balancing act to get it right.
That is correct. It's process management at its finest in reality. Excuse me. Anytime there's new technology, processes have to change or at least be looked at and adjusted. And the balance there is flexibility.
Yep. Agreed. And then the last one, full disclosure, we are an implementation partner, but there's a right way and a wrong way to engage your implementation partner. On the one extreme, it's more the technology vendor, managed by the IT department. We tell you what to do and you do it. And I can tell you when I've seen, we come in and rescue behind many of these organizations. And what I frequently hear is, yeah, our technology partner is brilliant at technology. They did exactly what we told them to do. And we shouldn't have told them to do that. We need somebody who's actually more than that, who actually is a true partner with us. On the other hand, they can be a project owner where you're trying to fully delegate the strategic thinking about the project. No one can own your project except for your internal people. You can't have an outsider come and own that for you. So yes, you need them to be a business partner with full influence across technology and across all the business teams that are engaged with this, maybe even being a coach to some of your core business users.
No, that's correct. And the business has to be a large participant here as well. As a business, you need to ask questions of your business partner, such as how much industry experience does the tech partner have? Talk to references. How much integration experience does the partner have with, in this case, CPQ and the remaining architecture around that, whether it's ERP or MRP systems or whatever else is around that. And then what resources are going to be assigned to the CPQ project? Are they junior resources? Are they senior resources? Are they field? Are they in-house? And junior reps aren't necessarily bad. Just know what the escalation process is should the need arise.
Absolutely. I love what you said there. It's not enough to say, oh, we selected a partner who is Microsoft, gold or silver, or they've got 3 people who are Microsoft certified. All those things are important. But do they know how to consult your business? Do they know what sales process looks like? Do they have any advanced degree MBA types of people on their staff? Do they have project managers? Are they CPQ Sync certified if that's an important part of what you're doing? There's a lot more to it than just, oh, they're a Microsoft partner. And in fact, that's almost the easy part. You need to understand the whole deal. Exactly. So I think if there's an overall theme in these, I know we need to wrap up. But as we went through those, if you reflect on them, most of those had to do with people. And what I find is organizations that implement CRM and say, this is a tool to serve people, our customers and our people that face our customers. And how do we help to do that better? Instead of this is a technology project for technology's sake. And I know that sounds like, yeah, that's a given. That's not what it is. But that's often where you end up if you don't keep balance between all these things.
Well said.
So I'll skip that slide that really kind of summarizes all the key reasons why you would do CRM, and just close again with this. If anything resonated with you today, we have a lot of resources on that. Feel free to reach out to me. There's my contact information. I've also got a book out on Amazon if you want to dive into some of the other reasons why we need to digitally engage as humans better. That's a great read.